Belle Gibson built an empire on a lie, but what can business owners learn from her rise and fall? In this episode, we break down the marketing tactics, branding strategies, and community building techniques that propelled her to success, and the ethical missteps that led to her downfall. Tune in for key takeaways on how to build a trustworthy, successful brand the right way. Hey, lady bosses, are you working even after putting the kids to bed but still not getting results?
Are you tired of spending money on ads that aren't getting engagement?
Do you feel burdened that you aren't fulfilling your purpose in life because you are so consumed with work?
I'm your host, Brooke Boltz. I'm an attorney and founder of Boltz Legal. I started my business and in 1 year was bringing in 7 figures and am now bringing in multi-7 figures.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Boltz, owner of Boltz Media. I've helped many businesses build their online presence and increase their revenue through digital marketing.
Want to hear how we did it?
We are here to help you achieve your goals personally, professionally, and spiritually.
So kick off your high heels, sit back, and let's ignite that passion.
We're Miss Biz, where we're putting the Miss in biz.
Let's get biz done. Before we get into everything, let me be absolutely clear. Belle Gibson's fraudulent claims about having cancer were unethical. They were inexcusable. However, from a business and marketing standpoint, there is a lot we can learn from her huge rise and her fall. So let's talk about the lessons that business owners and marketers can take away from the Belle Gibson saga. And if you haven't watched it, it is on Netflix. It is hugely popular. And there's a couple different documentary type pieces on her. One is called Apple Cider Vinegar.
So the first lesson that we can learn is the power of a compelling brand story. Belle Gibson built an empire around her story. She positioned herself as a young, relatable woman who had overcome terminal cancer through holistic health and wellness. Her brand was deeply personal and emotionally charged, making people not just consumers of her content, but also passionate supporters of her journey.
So every successful brand has a story. Whether you are a solopreneur or running a huge corporation, crafting a compelling and authentic narrative and story can create deep connections with your audience.
So by all accounts, Belle Gibson's The Whole Pantry app was a fantastic app with recipes and healthy tips. But do you think it would have been successful without the storyline of Belle healing herself from cancer? Probably not.
I really don't. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, actually. She had this great app that she had created that was full of healthy recipes and such, but that space of health and wellness is so saturated with tools and resources and influencers and people. Like, it's just so full of people that had she not had that unique story of healing herself from cancer, I really don't think that she would have risen to the success that she did. Do you think?
No.
No, it was her story. It was her
Yes.
story that compelled her. And so what we can take from that is sitting and asking ourselves, what is our story? Because her story is the reason that she reached these massive levels of success. And I don't think that we are really understanding sometimes how much impact a good story can have. Now, it has to be true, obviously.
Yeah.
It needs to be true. And I've tried to think, was there another story she could have told that would have had that kind of an impact? I couldn't think of any, really. I mean, this healing yourself from brain cancer is That's a great story.
Yeah.
Hard to top that.
What's really impressive is that it appears that Belle had no marketing money to launch her brand or her app, so she was able to do this because of her story and how compelling it was.
Yeah, when you look at her background, her mother, she moved out of her mother's home at the age of 12. It seemed like her mother maybe had issues, was not a good, loving, caring mother, and so she really came from nothing. And to see how she rose to these levels of success, I mean, her app was going to be on the Apple Watch.
It's crazy.
Not just as like an optional app, but it was going to be
Like a standard app.
Yes.
That the watch came with.
Yes, like the calendar or the clock, like it was going to be on there. And to think this lady who had no expertise or family or connections, nothing, built this and had reached these levels, it's just fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, she really knew how to build a brand without, and this was back before social media and a lot of these influencers were already out. So it was just crazy to me how she just had that foresight and knowledge of how to do this.
Yeah. So create a compelling story. It's got to be true, but it needs to be compelling. The second lesson that we took away from Belle Gibson's story is her community engagement. She leveraged social media to build a highly engaged community. She interacted with her followers. She shared personal updates and positioned herself as a thought leader in the wellness community. She also got influencers and media outlets to amplify her story, which gave her credibility and reach.
Yeah, so for business owners, this is a powerful reminder that your engagement matters. Building a community around your brand, not just broadcasting messages or saying what you want other people to hear, but it's also about actively engaging, and that can create loyalty and momentum.
So in her case, the community she built was around other cancer patients. So she's someone who has healed herself from cancer, allegedly. So now all these people who are struggling with cancer are flocking to her page and engaging with her, wanting to learn what she did. And so with your business, sit and think, what is that? Who are those people who are going to be interested in coming to talk about their own experiences? It's hard to imagine people being as passionate about interacting online as cancer patients would wanting to talk to someone who's healed themselves. Like, that's really compelling. But I spent some time trying to think for myself, what is something within my business that would make people want to talk about it? And I think it's easier for Miss Biz because I think people talking about their businesses is important to them, or mothers talking about their children is important to them. But when it comes to a law firm, you know, what do people really want to talk about? So the best thing I could think of, and I still don't know that this is a home run, but this is just what I could think of, is maybe some kind of page where people talk about their frustrations with insurance companies, where they, when they've been wronged by an insurance company, they can come vent about what's happened to them. And then other people who've also been wronged by insurance companies can chime in and commiserate and tell their own stories. And me as a legal a lawyer can tell them legal things on why their situation is good or bad or whatever. In addition to being the host of the Miss Biz podcast, I also own and operate a law firm in Florida called Bolts Legal. I wanted to make sure my listeners knew that you are invited to reach out to me with any legal issues you may have. I practice in the area of personal injury, home insurance disputes, and medical revenue recovery. However, whatever legal issue you may have, please always feel free to reach out. If I can't help you personally, I'll help you find someone who can. I'm licensed in the states of Florida and Texas, but even out of state, I have connections and know people in those places, and I'm happy to help guide you in any way I can. The best way to reach me is through the contact page on my website, boltzlegal.com. That's BOLTZ legal.com, and simply fill out the contact form, which comes directly to me and my email. I look forward to connecting with you, and thank you so much for listening to Miss Biz. That was the best thing I could think of that would maybe motivate people to want to come talk about something related to my business in the way that Belle did with the cancer patients. Is there anything you could think of with your business that would bring people to a community and want to engage like that?
Well, before I get into mine, something that might be beneficial for you is just offering legal advice, creating a page where people, even if it wasn't something that you specialized in, you could invite other attorneys who specialize in those areas to just give legal advice. Because I can't tell you how many people on Facebook alone are posting questions needing legal advice for different areas. So just being like that go-to person for legal advice and having a page of people who could support them and uplift them and give them the answers that they need, I think would be of high value for you. Just a thought.
That's a good idea. I wouldn't know all the areas, but like you said, if I joined forces with some other lawyers who did different practice areas, collectively, we could probably answer a lot of people's questions.
Yeah. So I think for my business, it's kind of similar to Miss Biz, where, you know, I'm going to be supporting business owners, but I think a lot of people, the majority of questions I get are about social media. So I think being able to provide a resource for them to come and ask questions as it pertains to social media would be something that my audience would find beneficial.
Agreed. So the other thing that Belle did that helped skyrocket her business was endorsements that she received. She got endorsements from her huge social media following, the media attention, and she had an appealing product. I mean, her followers, I don't know, she had hundreds of thousands of followers, and I think that's what made her appealing to these potential sponsorships or endorsers, was she had this huge sphere of influence. And so influence, we've talked about it a lot of times.
It's a superpower.
It really
truly is.
Yeah. So if I were to consolidate down the lessons from Belle Gibson into a very simple phrase, it would be her reason for success was her story and her influence. Because we know that not only did she just have a great story, but she was a masterful speaker about her story, and she got doors open for her to present herself in just she was really good at speaking and expressing and persuading people through human influence.
She really was. So the third lesson that we can learn from Belle is the monetization of trust. So Belle started off, I think, just telling her story. I'm not sure if she had intended to necessarily build a business or if it was just for attention. I mean, who really knows what her motive was? But her brand translated into real money, and she launched a best-selling app, The Whole Pantry, and even secured a book deal. Her audience's trust in her story turned into sales, demonstrating how trust drives consumer behavior. And from all the different people that spoke in her documentary, she was a very gifted chef. She could have probably had a successful business, just maybe not to the level that she achieved without this extremely compelling story.
Right. So once you have the audience and you have their trust, now they listen to whatever you tell them.
Yes.
And that's what happened for her. She had this huge following of people who hung on her every word because she had this compelling story and because she had been relating to them and giving them advice and recipes and stuff on her own for all this time. And now they were willing to pay for it on a much bigger scale. So for entrepreneurs, this highlights the importance of credibility in selling your products or services. Consumers buy from brands they trust. And if you establish yourself as an authority in your niche and genuinely provide value, you can monetize that trust ethically and sustainably.
So the fourth lesson is the importance of transparency and accountability. The moment doubts surfaced about Gibson's claims, her empire began to crumble. Journalists and skeptics started asking for medical proof, and when she failed to provide it, her credibility was destroyed immediately.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me when in court cases, when I prepare a client for their deposition or to testify, I say, look, it is better to tell the truth for things that may not be bright spots in your case. It's better to just say it what it is, because whatever the truth is, we can deal with it. We can interpret it in such a way to make it not that bad. But if you lie, I don't care how small of a lie it is, and the other side figures it out and exposes it to the jury, then your case is tanked. I mean, the cases that get nothing are usually because the jury did not trust or did not believe the person bringing the case. And so just the smallest white lie can make them distrust everything you say. And so for her, the moment that she was exposed as a liar, her empire crumbled, which is a good thing. I mean, it was built on a lie. Everything was built on a lie. Although, you know, her app, I think, would have brought value. And so it was sad to see an app that could have really helped a lot of people be gone, but it was necessary because she would have benefited from that, and she should not benefit from the fraud that she perpetrated on all those people.
It's crazy to me that it went on for as long as it did. Like a lot. I mean, she had been going on for, it's my understanding, a few years before anyone even started questioning her. So that's really insane to me that these big brands would partner with her and just take her at her word without any type of evidence at all. Finding guests for a podcast can be difficult sometimes, so Brooke and I wanted to let you guys know that we are available to appear on your podcast.
We also enjoy speaking at events, so if you have an event coming up, these jingles can go on the road.
Simply go to missbiz.com/contact and in the subject line, write podcast guest or event speaker, and we'll reach out to you to further coordinate.
Well, you know, you're bringing up a good point, and what it's bringing to mind for me too is that she almost went too far with the lie. If she would have just stuck to, I once had brain cancer, I healed myself, that's the end of the story, then people might not have questioned it and might have just accepted that was part of her past. But she kept building upon that lie and saying, now it's back, it's now in my blood and my spleen, and like
all these different places where it's extremely rare to get cancer in.
And then at a birthday party, she falls down and has a fake seizure in front of all the guests. And so it's just she kept building upon this lie, so much so that even people with even a basic understanding of cancer were like, wait a minute, this lady looks like picture perfect, and she's got cancer in every organ of her body. Like, this doesn't match up. And so it was, I think she took it too far, which is another lesson. And it's another thing I tell my clients in deposition. I say, don't exaggerate your injury. Don't say, I can't carry a gallon of milk, because if you can carry the gallon of milk, you don't say you can't. What you say instead is, I can carry the gallon of milk. And what they really mean is this, that I can carry it, but I can't carry it the same way I used to. Or when I carry the milk, I now have pain and I have to carry it slower, or I have to do it differently, and later I pay for it. That's what they really mean to say. But instead they just say, I can't do it. And so then they do surveillance and see him carrying a bunch of groceries, including a gallon of milk, and now their case is toast because they exaggerated. And sometimes in our business we do that too. It's like, all my clients made $1 million because of what I did for them, and we exaggerate, and people don't trust that either. And that's what happened. She started exaggerating her lie too much, that people were like, this isn't passing the smell test.
Yeah.
Something's not right. And then her goose was cooked. She went too far with it.
So the key takeaway is transparency is everything. So in today's age, people have the resources and access to more information. So they expect honesty from the brands that they support. So if you make a claim, whether it's about a product, a service, or a personal story, you must be able to back it up, because trust can take years to build, but only a few seconds to destroy.
Isn't that such a hard reality?
It is.
That you say or do the wrong thing one time and you're canceled, I mean, that's not her story. She really messed up.
Right.
And deserved to fall. But it's true that any little thing that upsets the masses can really bring you down. And so we have to always be aware.
Or even people's false interpretations.
Yes.
Like a 4-star review instead of a 5-star review. Even that slightest little metric can make people start to think like, oh, she didn't get 5 stars on this review, so maybe she's not that great.
Yeah, perception is reality. I say it all the time. What people think about you is what is true in their minds.
Yes.
And so we always have to be aware of our reputation and the way that we're presenting ourselves.
So the 5th lesson is that ethics matter in business and beyond. So Gibson's fall was swift and severe because she had crossed an ethical line that deeply affected people's lives. While her business tactics were effective, they were built on deception, and eventually that caught up with her. So, essentially, she was basically saying that she cured her cancer by having these healthy recipes and feeding her body with good nutrients. And her audience, who were cancer patients themselves, were listening to her. And who knows how that really impacted their health long term.
Right. So as business owners, we have to ask ourselves, are we operating with integrity? Ethical lapses may lead to short-term gains, but they almost always result in long-term damage. Sustainable success comes from honesty, value-driven leadership, and a commitment to doing right by your customers and community.
Yeah, I always say short-term profitability does not equal long-term revenue. So just do it right the first time. But what kills me about Belle Gibson, and when you watch this, you'll see it towards the very end. Even after all of this came to light, she then started posing as somebody else from another country, trying to be a spokesperson for another brand. That was crazy to me. Like, that was the plot twist that I didn't see coming. But it's like she didn't want to give up on trying to be a brand advocate.
Yeah, it was almost like she was ashamed of her true identity.
Yes.
And she was always trying to take on some other identity, and was really good at doing that. And I think it was maybe Kenya or some Somalia or some African country. Ethiopia, yeah. She went to Ethiopia and
had a fake Ethiopian accent, started dressing like them. Yes.
She changed her name to some Ethiopian name and basically just integrated herself into their community because she had basically been ostracized by her homeland, which was Australia. So she was like, excuse me, working her way up the ranks in Ethiopia. And then after this one interview, they learned who she was and what her story was, and she got kicked out of that community. But she just would figure out, wherever she was, she would figure out what would appeal to that audience, and she would become that.
Yeah, and she was good at it.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing, is we talk about authenticity and being who you are, and she was never who she was, but she was a master at being other people, and people believed that was truly who she was. She was a fantastic actress.
Yes.
In taking on someone else's identity. But, you know, honestly, her real story was pretty compelling. Where she came from and the upbringing that she had. We don't learn in this show a lot of details, but we learn enough that her mother was kind of absent and not someone who was a loving, nurturing mother. And there's a lot of people in the community who could relate to her true story. Mm-hmm. And if she had embraced her true story, it might have been a different audience, not the cancer audience per se, but there would have been an audience that related to her true story that she could have built a community around.
Absolutely. So our final thoughts are Belle Gibson's story. It's a cautionary tale, but also a case study in branding, marketing, and community building. She demonstrated how a compelling story and strategic engagement can create massive influence, but she also showed how quickly it can all disappear when it's built on dishonesty.
So the bottom line is build a brand that inspires, engage your audience with authenticity, and always operate with integrity. I know it's easier said than done, but that's the path to long-term success. So if you enjoyed this discussion, please remember to subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, and share this podcast with fellow business owners and marketers.
We appreciate you and are honored to be on this journey with you. We can't wait to help you, to encourage you, and show you how to grow personally, professionally, and spiritually.
If you found Miss Biz helpful, please leave a review and share with others.
You can follow us on social media at Miss Biz Podcast.
For legal questions or services, please visit boltslegal.com.
And for digital marketing needs, please visit boltsmedia.com. Let's get biz done.